Ms. Fee, I wanted to ask, when will the Secretary complete the legal review of atrocity designation in regards to Ethiopia? We've been waiting for months.
We have decided to refrain at the current moment from making a public determination in order to allow space and time to see if the talks that are currently underway can make progress.
Did you catch that? You think you're tuning in to see a congresswoman hold the State Department accountable, but what you're actually seeing is the difference between performing for Twitter and actually doing the job. Ilhan Omar tried to pin Assistant Secretary Molly Fee to the wall on Africa relations looking for that gotcha soundbite. But instead of folding, Fee gave a masterclass in why adults need to be in charge of foreign policy. Stick around. We're breaking down the full clip, and trust me, the American people will no longer sit and watch this kind of political theater pass for leadership. Let's get into it.
Ms. Fee, I wanted to ask, when will the Secretary complete the legal review of atrocity designation in regards to Ethiopia? We've been waiting for months.
As I have discussed here today, our primary focus has been on trying to engage diplomatically in the many ways that are available to us to reach an end to the conflict, which would obviously result in an immediate end of the atrocities. And so we have decided to refrain at the current moment from making a public determination in order to allow space and time to see if the talks that are currently underway can make progress. But I want you to know that we have undergone an active and dynamic determination process. It's ongoing as we continue to assess emerging reports of human rights violations and abuses, and we remain committed to seeing what we can do to address the current elements that have caused all of us such concern. Mm-hmm. We have also engaged Facebook and Twitter. I've spoken here today to ask the diaspora to consider how it discusses the situation. And we are quite concerned as well by hate speech by the government and other elites in Ethiopia. And I think we need to call on everyone to do better to arrest that situation.
Thank you. There's also increasing reports that the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, China, Iran are arming the Ethiopian government with drones and other weapons. Isn't it time to be pushing for an arms embargo? And in the meantime, shouldn't we be pushing our allies to stop arming Abiy's government?
Absolutely. The issue of arms supplies to Ethiopia is a component of our diplomacy with regional and international allies, and the issue of an arms embargo is one of the many elements of the discussion taking place in New York in the Security Council.
There's also mass migration that is happening in Ethiopia. Millions of people have been displaced. It's contributing to the crisis that's taking place in Sudan. We obviously are seeing many of these migrants enter Libya that are being brutalized. We're also seeing what's happening in Europe as some of them are facing heart conditions as they try to enter the border of some of the European countries. What is the U.S. involvement in trying to mitigate this situation and provide humanitarian assistance?
The subject of Ethiopia has been a subject of immense focus and concern since the Biden-Harris administration took office. In the early months of the administration, they appointed Jeff Feltman as envoy. We continue to be active in Addis with other parties to the conflict who we can reach outside of Addis. As I mentioned before, we're working with the African Union. We're trying to support President Obasanjo. We're working with Kenya and other influential partners in Africa. We're working in the Security Council, at the Human Rights Council. We work with our like-minded partners in Europe. There is a real sustained effort to try and arrest this conflict because of the devastating consequences that you've just described in your intervention.
And I hope those efforts are being handled with the urgency that it deserves. I believe Ethiopia is too big to fail, and it's the possibility of it destabilizing the whole region just breaks my heart. Speaking of the East African region, we know that Somalia has failed to have elections for over a year now. That conflict is happening. What is the U.S. position on trying to pressure the Somali government to engage in a process that allows for proper elections to take place?
So we agree with you absolutely that the elections are critical, first to complete the parliamentary elections so that the stage is set to move to the presidential elections. That is a component of our engagement with the government, all parties in Somalia, and with all the many regional and international actors who are also active in Somalia, so that there's a unified message. We're also looking now, as you know, the AMISOM mandate is about to expire, and we're looking at how that mandate can be reconfigured to support both the political process and the fight against al-Shabaab. So there is no neglect of that situation. It remains tough to convince the parties to move in the right direction. There has been some progress in the parliamentary elections, but there needs to be more, and it needs to be done more quickly to help Somalia get on a path to self-sufficiency. So that is an area of active discussion, again, with Somali leaders and with our partners in the African Union and in Europe who are financing part of the AMISOM conflict.
And to my colleague's point earlier with the carrot and stick, what mechanisms are we utilizing to make sure that Somalia understands what our position is in regards to this and takes the proper course?
I think one of the lessons that we learned from Afghanistan, that I personally learned and that Secretary Blinken learned, doing more of the same is not necessarily sufficient. So there's a real effort to make clear to the Somalis that they cannot depend indefinitely on international assistance and that they need to play a role in leading and managing their own country. So that is a spirit that is infusing our approach to Somalia.
Okay, let's take a breath. There is so much to unpack here, but the headline is simple. One person in that room wants headlines, and the other person wants peace. Did you notice how Rep. Omar started right out of the gate? She's obsessed with the atrocity designation. She's asking, when will the legal review be complete? She's impatient. She says, we've been waiting for months. Now look at Molly Fee. She doesn't take the bait. She calmly explains that the State Department isn't just sitting on their hands, they are purposely refraining from a public determination to allow space for talks. That is what actual diplomacy looks like. Omar wants a label she can tweet about. Fee wants to stop the fighting. If you declare everything an atrocity publicly right now, you might blow up the negotiations. Fee knows this. She's playing chess while Omar is playing checkers. Then we get to the section on the arms embargo. Omar starts rattling off names: UAE, Turkey, China, Iran, accusing them of fueling the conflict. She wants the US to start twisting arms and burning bridges with allies immediately. Again, watch Fee's reaction. She doesn't get emotional. She doesn't start pointing fingers. She just says, absolutely, arms supplies are a component of our diplomacy. It's such a professional shutdown. She's basically saying, we know we're handling it at the UN, calm down. She refuses to let Omar drag the US into a public spat with our strategic partners just for a soundbite. But the real kicker? The part that made me want to stand up and cheer? It was the end, regarding Somalia. Omar is complaining that Somalia hasn't had elections. She's asking, what is the US doing to pressure them? She wants the US to step in and fix it, like we always do. And Molly Fee drops the hammer, in the most polite way possible. She brings up Afghanistan. She essentially tells Omar, look, we learned our lesson. We can't just keep doing the same thing. She says explicitly that Somali leaders need to know they cannot depend indefinitely on international assistance. They have to lead their own country. This is the hard truth that politicians like Ilhan Omar refuse to accept. They want the US to be the world's policeman when it suits their agenda. and then they criticize the US when we intervene. Fee cuts through that hypocrisy. She is telling the Somali government, step up because the free ride is over. Honestly, it is refreshing to see a bureaucrat who isn't afraid to speak the truth to a congresswoman. Omar tried to paint a picture of US inaction, and Fee dismantled it with facts, strategy, and a harsh reality check about self-sufficiency. The American people will no longer sit and watch politicians use these hearings to boost their own profiles while ignoring the complex reality of the world. We want results, not rhetoric. And in this clip, Molly Fee delivered the results, and Omar just delivered the noise. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Was Fee too soft, or was she the adult in the room? Don't forget to like and subscribe.